Well, hello and welcome to another Branches of Yah presentation. And we're still talking about traditions or Torah. So we want to take a look at some of the things when the Messiah, when Hamashiach, Yahushua, was mocking the Pharisees of the day. And we'll get right into it because this is going to be about the blind man and whom he healed on the right before the last great day, on the last day of the Sukkot. He healed a man and offended a lot of people, and we see that throughout Scripture. So let's get right into it and take a look. All right. So as you can see in Yohanan, his Hellenized name would be John 9:1. It says, as he went along, he saw a blind man from birth. His taught ones asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Yahushua, but this happened so that the work of Elohim might be displayed in his life. As long as it is daylight, we must do the work of my Abba, Father. Yours might say him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Now, this was the high Shabbat Shabbaton. This is the 8th day, the Hashemini Atzeret. It is the last great day, the Hagadol, Yom Hagadol. So, and we see this in Wayikra. Yours might say Leviticus 23 and 36. It says, for 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And on the 8th day there shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. It is a closing festival. You do no manner of work. Now this word is Obadiah. A lot of times it'll say Malakah, which tells you that's your business. But this one says you do no Obadiah, you do no manner of work. So on this day, you wouldn't do any work. So he wouldn't do it on this day. So he's telling him that. So as we see in Bereshit, the sin in the garden is the ultimate cause of every disease. And Yahushua healed as a sign and a way of forgiveness and reconciliation. And it was being revealed through him. See, his Father is revealing this through him, through his word, through his Debar Yahuwah. The link between sin and disease was common knowledge amongst the Yehudi, or Jews, and also that it was stated in the Torah that Elohim visits the sins of the fathers upon the children and the children's children. This is through the 3rd and 4th generations. Their question was quite legitimate. So Yahushua, in his response, is not suggesting that this man or his ancestors were to be free of sin, but rather that it was not on account of any particular sin that he was born blind. He was born blind in order for Elohim to be esteemed through him. So let each one of us consider our own defects and adverse circumstances as a similar opportunity, which we should be living our lives, that he might be esteemed through us. And as long as it is day, Yahushua is explaining why he would do the work of the healing on the festival Sabbath prior to the 8th day, the last great day. The stake of Golgotha was already in view. And Yahushua's time was running out. He had to do his work when the opportunity arose. His encounter with the blind man presented him with an opportunity to show Elohim's mercy and healing. But more importantly, on the account of the day, to confront the Pharisees head on and mock their oral Torah, which they had placed above the Torah of his father himself. As he is the Aleph Tah, the Debar, or the word Yahuwah. He is the Debar Yahuwah. He is the Melech Yahuwah. So he is the very similitude and likeness of his father. He is of the Elohim, whatever Elohim is. I won't even suggest that I know what an Elohim is, but he was most certainly that. And we see that if you haven't seen the Talmud, now I have the entire books of the Talmud and the Zohar and all of these books so that for references. And the fact is, in the Mishnah and all throughout, this is Torah they're talking about. These are Torah commands. It's just that they packed so much around them, fence upon fence upon fence upon fence, that they made it a burden. They made it so burdensome that it was impossible to bear. And that's what Yahusha said, that you've given them a burden too great to bear, and to take upon you his yoke, to yoke ourselves to his teachings, the Torah of Moshe, what he gave to Moshe on Mount Sinai. So he's telling us, take upon you for his light. And it's easy compared to what they were giving him. I mean, they hung a 1,000-pound anchor around his neck, each and every person that would try to come and do what they said. And we'll look at this. The Sabbath commandment in Moshe, the sages had added, their word, not mine, had added no less than 1,500 obligatory rules. These can be found in the Mishnah in the section Moed and in the Talmudic tractate Shabbat. Alfred Edersheim gives a useful overview in the annexure 17 to the life and times of Yahushua the Messiah. Of great relevance to the present circumstances are the following rules: an outright prohibition against healing, except if a person's life was in danger. For this reason, a prohibition on the healing of a blind man, since blindness was not life-threatening, and so the healing could always wait for the next day. That's in the tractate Shabbat 108.20, if you want to look it up for yourself. To inject or apply any substance into a person's eye was considered an act of healing, and thus was prohibited on the Sabbath. Tractate Shabbat 108.20, same one. This is all mainly part of that. It's also prohibited to knead things together, i.e. mix clay or mud. That's in Tractate Shabbat 7.1. By healing this man, Yahushua would not only restore his sight, but simultaneously demonstrate the Pharisees' blindness that he did by deliberately doing this great work of Elohim, his Father, in a way that offended others against all their above-mentioned rules. So these are the rules that are in their Talmud, that he couldn't heal, he couldn't, and also, there's also in the same 108, it also said it is better for a man to walk 4 miles to water to cleanse his hands than to eat with dirty hands, for it is akin to murder to eat with dirty hands. This is how crazy their rules were, and they would stone you. Also, his name being Yahusha, being his father's name, and they know what that meant, they hated that as well. So there was nothing about him that they were not despising, which he said. In Yohanan 9 and 6, now, real quick, because there's so much in these, we got to remember, Yohanan or John 9 comes after 8, obviously, but there were no chapters and verses. So these scriptures would not have been put together this way. These writings would have been put together. And by the way, 8, almost all of chapter 8, everything about the woman caught in adultery. There's not one version of any scripture in any of the codexes where that appears. It is highly believed, 100% across the board, that it was added. In other words, it never was there. Now, I think it's a great, if you understand what it means, but unfortunately, this has become a backdrop of many people saying, you know, those without sin cast the first stone, and it's because he's catching them trying to catch him. First, they were trying to get him to judge, which he was not a judge at that time. He couldn't have offered whether they could or could not stone these people, but he caught them because a man would have had to have been, according to Levitical law, he would have had to have had the man with him as well, and they didn't have the man. So this would have actually been 8. These verses here would have been actually 8, and they weren't put together in any particular order, and they were trying to hide the fact that this was a Yehudi of the tribe of Yehuda, what we call Jew today. So they were very much against the fact that the Messiah is and was a Jew and kept all of the Torah, because he was the Torah, because he is the Torah. He is the Debar Yahuwah. Anyways, so in Yohanan in 9:6, having said this, he spit on the ground and made some mud with saliva and put it on a man's eyes. Go, he told them, wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So this man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him and begged him and asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was. And he said he made saliva, and he tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing, and his neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begged, asked, is this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was, and others said, no, he only looks like him. But he himself insisted, I am the man. How then were your eyes open, they demanded. He replied, the man they call Yahusha made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash, so I went and washed. Then I could see. Where is this man, they asked him. I don't know, he said. They brought him to the Pharisees, the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Yahusha had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Shabbat, Shabbaton, or a Sabbath. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes, the man replied, and I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from Elohim, for he does not keep the Sabbath. Obviously, they're talking about the oral Torah, the oral instructions, or the Talmudic traditions of men. But others asked, how can a sinner do such miraculous signs? So they were divided. Well, this simple and educated man who had recently regained his sight or gained his sight could see it so clearly, while those who taught the law, the oral Torah, would not admit it. Elohim does not listen to sinners on the basis of Yashayahu or Isaiah 59:2. How then can this man heal me if he were not from Elohim? Later, when he went and met them again, in Yohanan 9:39, Yahusha said, for judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. Some Pharisees who were with him and heard him say this and asked, what, are we blind too? Yahusha said, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. Yahusha will repeat Yashayahu or Isaiah's prophetic mission recorded in Isaiah chapter 6, 8-13. Then I heard the voice of Yahuwah saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me. He said, go and tell this people, be a hearing, but never understanding. Be ever seeing, but never perceiving. Make the heart of this people calloused. Make their ears dull and close their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. Then I said, for how long, Yahuwah? And he answered, until the cities lie ruined and without inhabitant, until the houses are left deserted and the fields ruined and ravaged, until Yahuwah has sent everyone far away, and the land is utterly forsaken. And though a tenth remains in the land, it will again be laid waste. But as the terebinth and an oak leaves stumps when they are cut down, so the kadosh seed will be the stump in the land. And that's in Yashayahu 6, 8-13. So again, he's mocking them. He didn't always just call them hypocrites. He called them out about the fact that they were teaching other things than Torah. All these Talmudic traditions, and you wonder where they might have come from. Well, they had come from Babylon, if you want to where it's a Babylonian Talmud. And they came into being because during the Hasmonean uprising, or what we would call the Maccabees, when the Zadokite priests were in the temples, they were the priestly line through Shlomo and Daud, King Daud. They were the priestly line, and at the time of the Maccabees, they had been completely corrupted. Matter of fact, they had been so Hellenized, they're the ones that allowed and agreed to let Antiochus Epiphanes, that is what caused desolation, so into the temple. He put his statue of Zeus in there, and he slaughtered a pig on the altar. And others had become completely enamored with midstream, or what we would call Egypt, and they started keeping those things. That's where a lot of these calendars and things that we have today came from. So they killed one of the Kohen Hagadol of the Zadokites. They ran them out, and then there was a big battle, but they ran them out, and then they ran out the Greeks as well, and they were able to take back the altar and rededicate it, and that was how Hanukkah came. But one sect of the Hasmodeans, or the Maccabees, became the Pharisees, and they had brought in Talmudic traditions along with Torah. And the other one became the Sadducees, and the Sadducees had actually been a Torah only, so they didn't listen to any of the Nabi, or the proclamations of the what we call prophets today. So that's where a lot of this came from. So this lasted all the way up until this time. You see the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and it was typically the Pharisees who would put these fences and around a fence, around a fence, around a fence, and made them burdens too heavy to bear. And that's why he was there. We also see that they were still in power at this time because they were keeping Hanukkah, which would be the dedication of the altar, or the rededication of the altar. And that only came about because of them driving out the Zadokites. So many things we could get into in this. We're going to stop there. I hope you got something out of this. This is a wonderful thing he did constantly. If I went into all the Talmudic oral traditions that they were keeping, that he was doing things on, I could stay here all night. But he did that every time he healed, every time he proclaimed. They knew exactly what he was saying, that he was the Mashiach, that he was the son of Elohim, that he was making himself equal to Elohim, because the son carries the same authority as the father when he is sent as a messenger or as an envoy. He would carry that same weight as the father. The commands of the father would go with whoever that prince or whoever that king would be. He would send that with his son. And so they knew what he was saying. They also knew what his name meant. So there's so many things that they were constantly seeking to kill him over. This must have enraged him terribly. It's hilarious if you really think about it, what the things he did. I mean, he would have picked that mud up and spit in his hand. Both of those things would have been like the worst thing to them. And then he healed a man. So he made mud, he spit, he mixed, and he healed, all on the Shabbat right before him, and then sent him there to tell him about it. They must have been incensed. He had a great sense of humor as well. Hallelujah. Let's praise Yah. We love you. Like, subscribe, share the word, share the bashar. These are the glad tidings of what we were sent in the world to tell everybody about. And always follow no man. Follow the Torah of Yah. Follow the books of Moshe. When he said, when they sit on the seat of Moshe, those things you do, but the things that they are doing, do not do those things. So let's forsake the traditions of men and all that comes with it. And let's stay focused on his Torah. You could spend a lifetime digging through that thing. Read the Hebrew. Dig into each letter and each word. I've got another one coming soon. And we love you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, guys.